harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zimet.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Beverly Zimet Show, where being the best you just got easier. My guest today is Madeline Faiella. Did I get it? Okay.
You certainly did.
All right. That's a good one. And she's calling in from Florida. What area of Florida?
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Yeah, everybody says Hollywood, you think of California, but she's in Florida.
It's Florida. So
Yeah.
good.
So it's great to have you on the show today, my dear.
Well,
And
it's such an honor to be here. Thank you. And it's so good to see you again.
I know, it seems like forever. Just seems
Right?
like forever. And time just, I don't know, time goes by. I guess the busier you get, the faster the time goes, right?
Exactly. The more we produce, the more productive we are. We just don't know the days or years anymore.
But it really doesn't matter.
Nope.
Nope. You just keep on. Hey, you get up, you do your thing, you're done doing your thing, you just go off and do something else and get up the next day and do it again, right?
Exactly. You got that right.
You know, I have to say, I don't feel like this is work because I so love what I do. And for me, being here in front of the camera, it's a niche that I have always enjoyed my entire life. First time I was ever in front of the camera, I was 7 years old on a little show called The Barn Dance, and I was singing. and, you know, it just kind of got in my blood and it never left.
I love it. I love it. And I can see it, and you can see that you enjoy it. And that's part of the joy of being able to do something that you love. Absolutely doing it.
Right.
You're alive.
Yeah. You know, if you're not living, you're dying. That's what they say.
And that's true.
Yeah. And you were a singer. What kind of music did you do, and what was your little singing career all about?
So my singing career lasted about 25 years. And the last decade of that, I was really blessed to go overseas.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was really great. So I was in Japan, I was in the Netherlands, and I was in Europe. So I got to sing for Prince Rainier when he was alive. I met a lot of celebrities. When I first went over there, I had hair like down to my waist, and I had this little leather coat on, and they sent this private plane for me, a little 6-cylinder thing. And all these people were on there with all these diamonds, and I had 2 braids all the way down to my waist. And I was like, where did I just land? I had no idea. And it was fun. So I've had a few original songs that I did. We did a lot of cover music. I worked with a lot of different musicians, orchestras. I did some recording. I did some background singing. So it was really diverse. I did a lot of TV, like in Portugal and what have you. And the interesting thing, and the reason I want to say this is because I think that people need to hear this, and we were discussing this, that while I was on stage, I was like the superhero.
Yeah.
And then I had the gap where I didn't have the self-esteem I identified with the stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I want to say that to people because none of us are perfect. And when we see these people that we want to role model after, their lives aren't perfect. Their lives aren't perfect. We're just human. And I just want to say that because I've been on the other side of it.
You know, I think that is so true. And that's why I work in the identity specialization arena, is because I had lost my identity as a child, being this little rebel and growing up and everything. I pretty much knew who I wanted and what I wanted to do, and nobody was going to tell me any different, right? And there was a section in my life, and I had a lot of anger, and my mom and I got into a major a major fight, right? And I was out of the house. I had gone to college, I went to a business college for a year, and I was working in Des Moines. I grew up in Iowa, and I was second oldest of 11. And I had come back home for the weekend, and I don't even remember what the argument was, but it was like, boom. And I just left, and you're not going to tell me what to do, Mom. And out I went, and I spent the night with the guy I was dating. And guess what? First time I ever had sex, I was pregnant. I know! This is so unfair, right? And it's like I knew the moment was over. It was crazy. And then, I never told anybody. And now 7 months are gone by, right? And it's like, I wasn't really showing. And it's like, well, sooner or later, it's only a couple months down the road,
Look what I got at the store.
Yeah, look what I got at the store, right? And so I told my parents, right? And the first thing my mom says to me is, well, you don't have to get married. Right? Well, who was I going to say, oh, okay. No, it was like, you want to bet? So anything my mom would say, I want to do the opposite, right?
Rebel rouser.
Oh my gosh. So we ended up getting married. And then my son showed up in February, and it was just insane. I had sex 2 more times. I had 2 more kids, and it's like, wait a minute. I'm not following in my mom's footsteps. She had 11 of us. I'm not going there.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And really, I had totally lost my identity. Right? And just like you said, that different you, all of a sudden, I wasn't who I was before. And I had 3 babies I'm responsible for, right? I was in a dead-end marriage. There was not love in this marriage. It was not the place to be. And this isn't the way my life was supposed to happen. I mean, and I had depression throughout my childhood, off and on and whatever. But it really had gotten me, and I got so moved away from the loss of who I was. I really had no clue who I really was anymore.
And then you fell into depression, right? Because I know I did for 2 years.
Oh, it got to the point to where, in 1974, now all my kids were under the age of 5, and I said, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm checking off the planet. I actually went for a walk to figure out how I was going to check off the planet. And I was crying that night. I was angry, and I decided, okay, God, you're gonna have a piece of my mind. Oh, I'm not kidding you. I did. I just cut loose. I grew up in a strict Catholic, family.
Boy, we have a lot of similarities, except for all that sex and babies.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I fixed that real fast. But but it was that 12 years in a parochial schools, that part of that brainwashing, and all this stuff. Now, we're talking back in the 70s. You don't get a divorce in the 70s. There's a lot of things that just weren't, well, guess what? After I got done yelling and screaming and blaming, I really had the blame game thing down really good.
Oh yeah, didn't we all?
Oh my goodness.
We didn't make any mistakes.
No, oh hell no. Are you kidding?
You're kidding?
I had the t-shirts, the trophies, you name it. I had them, right? And it was interesting after I got done really giving God a piece of my mind. When in essence, I found out later in the 80s that it really wasn't God who I was yelling at. It was my higher self.
Exactly.
It wasn't God. It was my higher self. But back then, it wasn't. But at that point, after I was done, I heard this voice, because I was intuitive throughout my whole childhood. I didn't know what that was. I just knew it was a way for me to get even, because I was small and I was picked on. I could get people to do anything I want and get them in trouble, and I would disappear before,
Oh, well, at least you're creative.
I was very creative.
I love it.
Back then they called it instigating, but I was creative. So when I heard the voice say, who's going to take care of your kids if you're not here? Oh my gosh, that was a slap into reality. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. But I heard my dad's voice, and it was my dad that I was so angry with, right? Mm-hmm. And his voice was the first thing I heard, saying, if you're going to have these kids, you're going to take care of them, because your mother and I aren't going to take care of them. We have enough of our own. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's the way it was, And it's like, oh, crap. Well, oh man. That means I got to hang around for a long
Responsibility,
time.
right?
They're all under the age of 5 because they were just a year apart. Bing, bing, bing. I'm serious. I was like triplets.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah. Hey, when I do it, right?
Right.
So so anyway, I said, okay, fine, let's make a deal. So this is the deal that I thought I made with God, but I was really making it with my higher self. It's like, I
Right.
want out of this dead-end marriage, so I want a divorce, I want to move out of Iowa, I want to do all this stuff, list, mile-long list, right? And the voice says, okay. Like, what? What do you mean just okay, right? I thought there was going to be a conversation here. Okay? And it's like I had no clue how to do it. And then that's when I first heard mind over matter.
Mm.
Well, I had no clue what mind over matter was. And it's like, great, what the heck is this thing? What am I supposed to do? And then it just said, start living your life for you and your kids. And I kind of sort of was, so I really focused on that. And I decided, if I didn't get my act together, I was not going to get what I wanted. And so I did. And I did start living as it was just me and my kids. And
Because that's what it was.
it really was. It was my survival. It was like having 4 kids and 3 was enough.
Mhm.
And so I really worked hard on myself and started cleaning my act up and getting my identity back. When people would say, oh yeah, aren't you the person who pumps gas? Oh yeah, you write for the newspaper. Oh yeah, you're so-and-so's mom. And it's like, no,
No.
my name is Beverly, right? And they would look at you like deer in the head, like, what? And it's like, so I was reclaiming me. I have a name, right?
I love that. I love that. And one of the reasons I don't like labels,
Yeah.
people say, what do you do? I be
Anything I want.
anything I want. And I applaud you because at such a young age, I wasn't that aware at that young an age, but I did know that I was different as far as feeling things that I didn't know was my intuition.
Yeah, I didn't have an understanding of it either until after I had moved to Denver, because then I packed up and went to Denver. My older sister said, you can come out here, stay with us till you get on your feet. And I said, you're on. And I did, got my divorce when I moved to Denver, everything, and oh God, my dad thought I had just like went over the deep end. Because again, in the 70s, you don't get a divorce. That was not heard of. But when I got out here, I started getting around people who understood what the psychic was and, the intuition and stuff like that. And I began to get an understanding of it. And it was either 1982 or 1983. I took a course called Silva Mind Control. And that was like one of
Oh.
the earliest ones out there, right?
I heard about that. Yes, I
Yeah.
heard about it the first time in 1983. And I was in Finland.
In Finland? Okay.
The first time I ever heard of Silva Mind Control.
Yeah. Well, the gentleman who helped Silva write the program and put it all together and worked with him for a lot of years was the person that I took his last training on with, right?
Wow.
And I tell you what, when I went through that class, it just explained so much of all the things that happened growing up for me. And it was like, oh my gosh. So I really wasn't that weird. There's a word for this, right? Because that's what you were called. You were called weird, or
Different.
it's like ew, like this, and it's like, but it was interesting, and that just really opened doors for me, and I began to soar, because then there was no limit for me whatsoever. And
Oh, I love hearing that.
yeah, so I spent 12 years in the sandpaper business. I had big trucks. I was a wagon jobber, is what they called us, right? And
You're so cute.
yeah, so I had this big purple truck that said BZ Distributing on it, right?
I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. You open up the back end and it looked like a big paint store. I didn't sell paint, but I sold everything else, right? And I mean, my first year in business, I hit 3 figures, Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I had two other girls working for me. We were known as those women out there,
Those women. Good for you.
Yeah,
You need more of that.
Yeah, and women weren't in that business back then.
No,
So you'd be a pioneer, and I guess I could call myself a pioneer in a lot of aspects,
I
you
wish you
know,
would.
and so it just kind of went from one thing to another. But I also started my counseling career during that time because the guys would come to me. I mean, I had the respect. I really got the respect of everybody in the shops and stuff, right? Which was
Yeah,
good.
I don't doubt that.
And what was amazing was they would come to me and they say, "Hey, Beverly, you're a woman. Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Well, I'm glad you noticed. What do you need?" Right? Because I mean, I flirted a lot, and they did. I mean, it was great. It was so much fun. But there were serious times, and they would come to me because they have issues with their wife or with their
Mhm.
girlfriends. They didn't know what the hell was going on, right? So they'd come to me to find out what what am I doing wrong? What can I do? This is crazy. They've had enough, right? So I tell them what to do. I say, okay, just do this, this, and this. Real simple little things, right?
That's
And they're
always
like, yeah, they're like blown away. It was like, oh my God, no way. And I said, is what you're doing working? Well, no.
no.
Then what do you have to lose? It'll either work or it won't. And then if it doesn't work, you can come back and say, I told you so. But if it did work, then I can say, I told you so. Okay, deal. Guess who guess who got to say I told you so?
Exactly.
Right? And so I saved a lot of marriages,
That's beautiful.
and
It was a matter of education and knowledge, right?
it was, you're on the other side of the fence, and I think men complicate us, right? They think that they have to buy us. I don't want
Right.
that. You know, just be there emotionally for us.
That
It's
I
the
just got
small
goosebumps. That's
things.
such a truth. I
Yeah,
just got goosebumps.
it's
Be
the
there emotionally.
yeah, it's the small things that count, not the big things.
Exactly.
You can buy me a mansion. You can buy me all these fancy cars. You can give me diamonds. But you know what? If you're not there to wash the dishes for me, or feed the baby, or
Or
just
hear
sit by
what
the
I'm
couch and just
saying,
give me a hug, yeah,
right? Or hear what I'm saying, have a conversation. But
yeah,
oh, it just disappeared. I understand that.
yeah.
Even in friendships, it's
Oh,
important.
exactly. And it doesn't matter whether it's male to female or
Right.
or female to female, male to male. It doesn't matter. It's when you're in a relationship, it's communication, and I feel that communication is probably the biggest detriment in any relationship, whether it's a
It is.
friendship, whether it's a start of a more than a friendship, or if it's a marriage that's been for 50 years.
People
Where are
are
the lines
afraid
of
to speak
communication?
up.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to be visible. They're afraid to sometimes even look at themselves and say,
right.
God, I don't want anyone to know that I'm imperfect. We already know that. It's
That's
okay.
right. You know what? And the crazy thing about it, everybody's thinking the same thoughts you are.
Same thing. It's
That's the
true.
humor in the whole thing, right?
I never
Everybody's
have you ever been like at a workshop or something and you're like in the front and you raise your hand and about 20 people go, oh yeah, I was just gonna ask that. Well, I
yeah,
wanted to, but they wouldn't open up their mouths. So yeah,
yeah.
spot on communication, Beverly, is so important.
Right, right. And it doesn't matter what other people think of you, it matters what you think of you. And when you can
Mm,
learn that, oh my
yes,
gosh, it makes, and don't take things personal. Everyone's entitled to their perception, and everyone's
yeah,
going to have a different perception. Why? Because their database is different than your database and how you
absolutely.
interpret things. Like I mentioned earlier, that the anger and the hate that I had at my dad, right?
Yeah,
When I finally started working through a lot of these issues, and again, I started taking my little walks down the gravel roads, because I'll tell you, that was my saving grace. That was my saving grace. And I had my dad's picture like up in front of me, and I would just yell and scream and tell him how much I hated him, how angry I was, and all that stuff. And the more of it I got out, all of a sudden I had this big aha moment. Oh my God, I don't hate my dad.
not at
I'm really
all.
not angry at my dad.
Be angry at yourself.
Yeah, why? Because I interpreted and action that he took, my reaction went this way with the database of information that I had, and it was all on me,
Absolutely.
not there. So when
No
you
one to blame.
no, that's right, that whole blame game thing, right?
Can't play it. That's a game over.
Yeah, game over, done. But that to me was probably one of the milestones in my life when I really understood that how we react to someone else's action. And life is nothing but action, reaction, cause and effect, right? When we can really understand the performance in our thought processing and what our beliefs of the database of information that we have in our perception,
Yeah,
it's
everyone
all
has a
on
point
us.
It's on us, and everyone has a point of view.
Yeah.
And the action reaction is very Newtonian thinking, because that was Newton, and he believed in the action reaction. And
Right.
now I believe that we've evolved into a space, if I can add this, that we now have the ability to respond.
Right. Back in the day when we were kids, and even into our adult life, it was, you didn't speak freely like that. You weren't able to just be that expression of, and that's one thing that I allowed my kids to be, that expression.
That's great, because
And
I spoke up, and sometimes that hurt.
yeah, I'm surprised I have teeth in my mouth,
Right? I'm like, boy, that was in those days. Are you kidding me?
I know, I know.
If I
So
say why and why not, and my dad would go, "I'm your father, and that's why."
that's right.
And
Because
then
I said so.
stuff all that stuff down,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now we know that that's a real bad thing to do for a child.
Yeah.
And
So again, you only learn what you've been taught. And again, that database, and when you look at today's world with the technologies, I mean, look at us right here on this
I
Zoom,
love it.
right? Would you ever thought back in the 70s we'd have been doing something like this? Are you kidding me?
No.
I know, we were barely getting TV, right? Color TV back then. Remember the old color screens where you had a line of red and a line of blue and a line of yellow, and you put it on the screen?
I remember my father didn't want to get a color TV. We begged him for like a year and a half, because he was afraid that we would get some kind of radiation from it.
Yeah.
In some way, he was right.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at the technology of today, and the information and everything that's available, and these kids that are coming into the world today, they're not coming in stagnant like we were. They're coming in with full memory of where they came from, right? And
I think we all came in with full memory. However, our memories were just like smacked right away. Our memories were like, "Oh, no, you don't," because I don't know that we were that evolved. But I do hear a truth in what you're saying. That we certainly today it's different. We've evolved.
Yeah, we have, and communication is getting better, right?
Yeah.
And where does the buck stop here? I mean, generational things still happen. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of abuse. An abuser is usually, the abusee, and vice versa. It just kind of keeps on growing, and it's, where does the buck stop with something like that?
It stops with the person who becomes aware.
That's right. And there's more and more people out there. Now, women are like 8 to 1 over the male gender, right? Mm-hmm. So here we are, the pioneers, and we're, doing that. We're coming back into our full power, right? But supportive. Women support differently than men do, right? Mm-hmm. Because they can be, and they can be emotionally there, right? And it's okay to just kind of bare your soul without being judged, right? And I think there's a lot to be said about where we go with that judgment thing. And
judgment. If I judge someone else, then it's 100 to 100 that I'm judging myself.
Exactly, because we're so much that reflection.
Yep.
So when you see something in someone else that you don't like,
Say hello to yourself in the
That's
mirror.
right, and say,
Hmm.
could that be an issue in here? And that's why
Exactly.
it conflicts with me so much, right?
Oh gosh, yes. And
Yeah,
you know, it's beautiful that you mentioned that because, and this is great stuff. You know, I always tell people, you know, we're not like 2 decades ago. This is not airy fairy. This is deep, important stuff that
right.
really is a part of the human and the societal evolution that we're a part of right now. And when I see somebody that like irks me, air quotes, and if it irks me, I'm like, okay, Madeline, let's look at you.
Right,
Where does that shine in you? Or where is that in you? It could be hiding in a corner somewhere. It could have been there forever. It could have been implanted, most likely when you were a kid, or maybe, God knows, decades before you were even born.
right,
But it's there. So that means be grateful that that person kind of irked you because now you can look at yourself
right.
and be a better person.
Well, and that's the whole theme with the show, being the best you that you can be. And how can you get to be better and better all the time? Is to be able to recognize those things that, like, oh, if I change that, and the more you get rid of, and I call myself a self discovery archaeologist
Oh, I
because
like it. It's great.
so when I work with clients, it's like, let me help you become your own self archaeologist. And
I
what we do
love it.
is, how do you find you? By getting rid of the things that aren't you. So, all these little things that come up, we can be grateful that they're showing up because they're not who you are. And you start moving all those little things away, you get your little brush out, and you just kind of,
Right?
you don't need to dynamite it because if it dynamites, then you got to go find all the pieces, and that's not
Exactly.
fun.
You have to do like the archaeologists do, little tiny brush, go
That's
through.
right. And all of a sudden, all those things that you're not are gone. And here's this beautiful essence of the soul of who you are.
I know, and you know, Beverly, it is such deep work.
It
It
is.
is such deep work. And I just want to say that there have been times, I'll speak for myself, but I know this to be true pretty much across the board. It's not always pleasant.
No.
It's not always pleasant work, and but there's nothing there that will kill you.
Exactly. Yeah, or
It
you'd have
won't
been dead
kill
a
you.
long time ago.
Yeah, and you, but it's like, God, I don't like this. Can I share something with you?
Oh, definitely.
All right, so I think we talked a little bit about this about 2 weeks ago, a week before last. I was in that position where going to another level in life and business for myself, realizing, of course, this is just you, that there's no one to blame, and that this is something that a lot of people don't think about is that even all this good that's coming to you, that's a new responsibility.
Right. That's right.
So, right? And
Yes.
oftentimes when we're overwhelmed, like I was feeling, it's because that stuff that should just lighten us up sometimes feels a little heavy. And I got a little pushed off the path. And that's what happens to us when we feel overwhelmed. And so I came back, I pulled back and got that little tiny brush out just like you're talking. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be, I'm not getting back into my office until I come up with a solution here, until I find where that bit is in me,
Right.
And so I love that you said, they use that little brush. So I'm going to keep that in my mind because that's so cute. I love it. And it
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And so after doing that, just like we talked about before, I felt so refreshed. And it wasn't all bad. It was that it's not even easy for us to accept and receive the good.
And that is so true with a lot of people. It doesn't matter what age you are, because we're always taught, share, 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 give, give, give. Wait a minute.
Oh God, I
This
can
is
hear that.
Oh, but it's about the self because if
Mhm.
if you're not filled inside within who you are, you can't be full outside of yourself, because you can't give more outside of yourself than what you've given to yourself. So it all
Exactly.
starts with the self, right?
Yeah, you're like Swiss cheese inside. And in order to put something in those holes to fill it,
Yeah.
it has to be something that you value and you need for your value. Otherwise, it goes right through the holes and you keep filling it. Like some people will go shopping or
Yeah.
have sex or spend money or gamble. That's not filling the hole. You
No,
know,
it just
I'm
gives
thinking
that moment of gratification,
the
and
moment.
then
And
the
then
guilt,
boom,
then the guilt comes
then
in,
the
right?
guilt and the shame. And it's like, if I give
Yeah.
this to you because I'm giving it to you and I'm expecting something, that's not giving. We have
No,
to give without
without
expectation,
strings attached.
without strings attached, without
Yeah.
expectation. And I just have to say this, that being self loving does not mean, as you well know, selfishness.
No.
It's actually selfish not to care for you. And I'm not talking about go get your nails done 6 times a month. And you know that. I'm talking
Right.
about you have all your pillars covered: financial, spiritual, work, health, your psyche, everything.
Right.
Those pillars all need to be nourished, or the roof that they're holding up, which is you, will crumble and it'll just slide off and be down
Right.
beyond the foundation. And everything we do is foundational.
Well, it's been,
Simple.
it is, it might not be easy, but it's simple. And there's a
It's
difference
simple,
with those two words,
right?
oh yeah, and again, like what you're saying, to be able to have that and clean that up and be fulfilled within yourself. When I look at others, and we're working through issues, emotions store in different parts of the body,
Yes.
right? So you have fear in the kidneys, right?
Yeah.
You
Because
have
everything starts at cellular level.
Right. And then your anger stores in the liver. Your bitterness stores in the pancreas and in the gallbladder. So when you start looking at issues that are happening, and then you got your energy ports or your chakra systems, right? And the different sections of the body, that it impacts. That's energy. We are an energy being. We're an electromagnetic energy being, soul essence.
Absolutely.
And so everything is vibrational and it's going to impact us. So your belief system is going to make a difference in how you respond. So we go back again to that action and reaction thing. So the science in it is going to store in these cells because of your belief system and the patterns that you follow and that repetition. So it's important that you really understand the fuel you're feeding an emotion.
Yes.
An emotion is a word. A feeling is the fuel that feeds the emotion.
Exactly. And we get triggered by those old stories. And
Yeah.
most people, including myself, until I realized it, don't know that it's a trigger.
Right.
And, I studied a little bit, just a little bit of quantum physics because it's so fascinating.
Oh, it's amazing. I love
It's
quantum
amazing,
physics.
right? Oh, I'm like, really? And when I was a
Yeah.
kid, I hated science, but that's because those were the thoughts that I was given,
Right.
and those were that was the way I believed. But nonetheless, there's evidence of everything that we're talking about.
Well, there's science behind it now. We didn't used to
Yes,
have the science because we didn't have the equipment to measure it. Now it's a different
exactly.
story, right?
If it's measurable, it's real. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we talk about um, our businesses, for example. If you have something measurable, you can care for it, you can see where it's going. For
Right.
us as a being, those things in us that are measurable are just that. There's emotions, our reactions, responses, because we have, and this is something that I love. There's so many brain cells in our body.
Right.
There's so many in the heart. That's why when people say heartfelt, that goes beyond just the organ. It's truly
Right.
your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. And that's why when people get a broken heart, they feel so bad because we do have brain cells
Right.
everywhere in our body,
Right.
but we have them in the heart. I got goosebumps. That was so exciting for me when I learned that.
Right. Well,
because it made so much sense.
yeah, the heart's like the second brain,
Yeah,
And my book, The Power Formula, the subtitle is the heart mind connection,
nice.
right? Because there is that strong bond in there, right? The brain stores stuff and sends it out all over. It's the trigger point, right?
Yeah,
It's the light switch. But the heart is the one that gives the message to the brain to deliver,
exactly.
right? So again, when you come from your heart, and you come from the heart, and the heart is what? It's the symbol of love.
Hmm.
So we have two main emotions. We have love and we have fear, right? So when you're looking at all, and I don't like to use positive and negatives because they're a charge, but we're looking at positive, negative words, okay? So the higher powered words, the positive thinking words, run off of that love. Then you come over to the fear, and it's the lower vibrations are the negative words. So the guilt and the shame and the angers and the hates and frustrations and all of that are a lower vibration, which is a negative vibration. And then when you go to the positive vibration, of course, you got your happiness, your joy, and your fun, your excitement, your adventure, and all these different things. But when you understand vibration, because we're both, right? We're both positive, negative forces, and if you
Yeah,
understand electricity and how it works in your home, and how it's working so that we can sit here and talk to each other, it's a negative and a positive charge combined in the right
exactly.
frequencies to be able to move across the waves to pick up and receive and back and forth in a split second, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting that, you know, some people may look at it as good and evil, God and the devil,
Right.
but it definitely is that seesaw.
Yeah.
And the best place for us to be, I believe, is as neutral as possible, and that means trying to balance.
Well, it's finding that harmony. That's kind of how I describe it. Is
Right,
right.
and it doesn't stay like that all the time.
Not all the time. It takes a lot of work to be able to stay and walk in that path of harmony. But know when your pendulum goes either direction. Now you
Where to
have a
bring it
choice.
back.
You can stay out there, or you
Yeah,
can bring it back. Go out, experience it, come back. But
come
don't
back.
bring the charge with you.
Exactly. And also
Right.
neutrality, when you go down into the cellular level, has a lot to do with
Oh
how
gosh.
how alkaline you are. And
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, if you talked to me about this, I would be curious, but I wouldn't have understood it all. And I love that we have the control of our mindset
Right.
and we can change that. So I look at it this way. So your brain is like a little car on wheels, and you are driving that car. And that car, you are the mindset.
Right.
So you drive that mindset. That's why we can rewire the brain,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
it takes time to, like, God, we got to turn that wheel. But when we're smart and we see that in order to get out of that rut, you just maybe need to put a piece of wood underneath the tire,
Yeah.
the wheel, right? And then
Right.
it's like, boop, we're out, let's go. And when I talk to people or clients or whatever, I have a little illustration of that so that it's easier for them to see it,
Right.
and it's a lot of fun. And I know that you may feel the same way, but if I could share that, when I feel a alignment or things are just working well, I really embrace that because it doesn't last forever. However, what took years to get over, weeks, months, now maybe takes days or an hour or a
Right.
minute,
Right.
right?
Right.
I
I
love this conversation.
I have, over the years, I've developed different techniques, and I always wanted to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Well,
Oh,
Spirit kept me away from that. Thank you, Spirit, because where I went with it was I wanted an answer, not a solution that was a take this drug or
right,
just come
right.
back and regurgitate it every couple weeks and then go home
Something
and
to the
eat it and bring
problem.
it back. I wanted a solution. And
Yeah.
so, working in the alternative field, I found that solution, and I started putting together, things that work the most. So I have a little program called the Rah-Rah system,
I
right? It's
love
like Rah-Rah, right? And so it's 5 steps. So the first R is to recognize. Recognize there's an issue. Because if you don't start with recognizing that you have an issue, then
can't
you
do
can't
anything
go
about
anywhere else,
It's
right?
done.
And then the second thing, and this is like the key element, is to acknowledge what you just recognized, to acknowledge that as your truth.
Yes, and there's no right, no wrong, no good, no
No
bad.
bad, just is. Just is. Yep, and everybody's is different. But what
Yes.
happens is a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that as their truth
Oh,
because
it
it's like, well, no,
scares
I don't
them.
believe that.
Right.
Oh,
And
I
it
get that.
scares them.
But you believed it when you created it. And that's where it's stored in the subconscious, is in that moment of creation, which was way back who the heck knows when, right? And it's been getting a lot of charges from everybody else's similar things, and every time you've gotten something with a similar emotion. So all you got to do is acknowledge that that was your truth, and the subconscious relax.
And that it's okay.
And then you can release it.
Yes. You can't release it if you don't know it's
If
there.
you're still
It's
fighting it,
just-
if you're still in conflict, you
yeah, if you
can't
don't
release
say
it.
hello to it's like, hey, sadness, or hey, anger, what do you want me to learn?
Yeah.
Look at it. What do
Okay,
you-
yeah, you're my truth here. Okay,
That's fine.
so it's like a child. The subconscious is like a 5-year-old, right?
Yeah, we're cute.
Yeah, and you created this truth, this old candy bar, shall we say, because you can bribe the subconscious, but you first have to admit that the subconscious is right. It's like a child; they're gonna always be right. It's mine, 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 mine. No, you can't have it, right?
Exactly.
And as soon as you say, okay, oh, well, then you relax. And now the bribery starts. So now you've admitted that, okay, that was your truth. The subconscious said, I'm right. Okay. So now what you do is you come out with something different and you say, okay, you remember way back when we did that? Yeah, that was fun back then, but it ain't fun no more. It's not? No, look at I have this new candy bar. Here's the old candy bar. Here's the new candy bar. And this one's nice and shiny. It's got new stuff. We're going to have more new fun. It's bigger and
New
better.
experience.
And pretty soon the subconscious says, okay, you can release that. And now you have your new truth, your new belief. And that's where the fourth part comes in, is to replace. Once the subconscious has let go, you need to replace your new truth. Now you bring in, I am powerful, I am loved,
Yeah.
I have confidence. Whatever it is that you're working through, that's kind of the opposite of what you just let go. Reinforce that with positive affirmations, because that moves into the cell memory. Because again, you go back to science. Science does not like a void. Space does not like a void. Even if you can't see it,
That
there's
black
something
hole.
there.
We don't want that black hole.
No. So we want to fill it up with what we want at this point in our life, the same way we did way back when we put that other belief in. And that becomes your new truth, and then you accept that. So that's the RARRA, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And you can do that when you get really good at it, and I teach my clients how to do this. Again, it's that little, scraping away, just brushing away. And
Little bits.
when those issues come up, in 30 to 60 seconds, you can get rid of the ignition point that fast. By recognize, acknowledge, release, and you take your higher self and your subconscious. There's a little script that goes with it. The higher self and the subconscious go on a journey through your cell memory, because they know where it's parked. Your consciousness doesn't.
Doesn't know, because your brain has two things, and it wants to keep you safe and it wants you to be right.
Exactly, and that's where the conflict comes.
Yes.
So to be able to communicate with your higher consciousness, you got to be able to go through the subconscious and not have that conflict of interest, right? And so when you do that and you move yourself out of the way, and you can do that really fast, and you run that little rah-rah system, I tell you, the dirt starts flying really fast, and you can do more and more and more and more. Then when we start to see that there's light at the end of the tunnel, then we
Right.
can go into some of the deeper levels. We're still going to use the rah-rah system, but we're going to go deeper layers, and we'll go generational and into soul cell memories and stuff like that. But there's a lot that you can start doing to recover your own identity, to start with it
Yeah,
and then go deeper.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I find that when people, like when I'm talking to people, and in that moment when they see there's hope and relief
Yeah.
and reset buttons, that's the moment when I'm like, oh my God, I love it. And most of the time, well, all of the time, when there's an incongruence with the heart and the mind, and that's usually what it is, part of it, we're incongruent. We think
Right.
one way and yet we feel another way, but we were thought to think. Get out of your head, get
Right.
into your heart. And it's simple, but it's
But
not easy.
not easy, and
Not
and
easy.
and it doesn't always taste good, smell good, feel good, sound good. Right?
Exactly.
But it's there.
Exactly.
But again, you have choice because you have free will.
Yeah.
You can stay and wallow in it, or you can say, you know what? This stuff's been here for a long time, and it really isn't doing me any justice. So out.
Right. It's like
Right?
ask yourself, am I having a good time? And we are meant to, I think that our birthright really is. Now, I'm not talking about being happy like you're high or airy fairy
Right.
all year, but in general, we are meant to be happy, productive people, beings.
Exactly. Exactly. We live in a world of duality, and it's
Yeah,
how do we conquer that duality, right? I wrote a book called Which Side of the Fence Are You On?
I love it.
You know, because you can't be happy and sad at the same time.
Nope. Can't be
It's one or the
grateful
other.
and angry either.
Nope. It's one or the other. Where do you want to be? Which one makes you feel good? So if you stop and think about it, it takes so much more energy to be over here on the lower vibration than on the higher vibration. It takes a lot more energy to be sad or angry or guilty than it does to be over here to feel happy and joyous and confident and refreshed. So it's your choice. Where do you want to be? How
It's
hard
just
do you want to work?
when exactly, and when I'll tell you, I worked super, super hard for years because once you get a taste of feeling better, you're like, I want more. It's also like if you take a tuning fork, that's vibration. And
Right.
with music and harmony, for certain people, certain music works for them. And the reason is because they are congruent with that particular music.
Right.
I know that there's some angry music, and maybe some people are there, and that's okay. All of it's okay because in the moment when you're supposed to move, you will.
You will.
But
That's
yeah,
exactly right. And it's
you will.
it again. It goes back into that recognizing.
Yeah.
When your time is ready to move, you will. And
It,
and again, no right, wrong,
Nothing's
no
right
good,
or wrong.
bad.
It's interesting when people say,
There is.
"Eh, when you're older, you don't like, it's not that you don't like it because it's noisy. It's just that as you age and if you're evolving, you get to a point where you don't need that to live. You don't need the loudness. You enjoy the vibration of something that is softer and
Right.
smoother. And so that changes with the colors that we choose, with the foods that we eat, with the
Yep.
people we hang around with, the music, and all of that is simply, like you say, vibration. Because I know when I was a kid, now my vibration was like blah, 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 everywhere.
Yeah, mine still is.
Yeah, it was everywhere, girl. Let me tell you, it was like Pat Williams says, everything. And now, for the most part, I can take that and put it somewhere. Although I still have that, oh, squirrel. So
Yeah.
I can at least focus better now. And it's taken years of work. And I think one of the main things, and this is, I talk about this a bit in the book that I'm writing right now, Fearless Visibility. We are afraid that if someone sees that energy,
Right.
they're going to think that we're crazy. And then if we're calm, there's others of us that believe they're going to think we're crazy. The key is to be confident in who you are, just like you were saying.
Exactly.
Embrace it, be aware, see it. And I say, engage in it. Engage in it. Anger, why are you here? And the more
Right.
questions you ask,
The more
the
answers you're going to get.
more answers you get. And there are times, like someone was talking to me, and then we realized through questions and answers that the depression went down to anger, which then went down to guilt.
Yes.
And who knew, right?
Yeah, and sometimes that can even go further from the
Oh, yeah.
guilt down into the shame.
Oh, yeah.
And
They go hand in hand.
yeah, and so again, it's it's those layers that you move
All the
away.
layers. I
Yeah.
know a lot of us say, well, we peel the onion, but it's layers. However you want to
Yeah.
lasagna. It's layers. Look at it like lasagna. I'm Italian. I'll look at it like lasagna. And it's true. It's like you have to
It's so
peel.
true. Yeah.
I talk to people about what I call them appetizer principles, because you can't take the middle layer out until you take the top layer off. And it's little by little. So if you introduce into your life a new principle each day, a new discipline, a new thing that will get you to the point where you can see what's going on,
Right.
it's like having an appetizer. You don't need to eat all, just have a appetizer, an appetizer principle every day. You make 1% growth.
Right.
Do one thing differently. Get out of your bed on the other side. It says something.
Yeah, just get out of those old habits because,
Yeah,
they say old habits are hard to break. Old habits never die. Well,
they
you
are
know
hard
what?
to say,
Yeah, and so you're in
but
charge
you
of that.
can.
And it starts with different things like that, like you say, get
Yeah,
out of the other side of the
so
bed.
simple.
You know, when you get dressed, if you put your shirt on first, put it on last. If you
Yes,
put your leg in your pants, the right leg first, put the left leg first. Just start shifting it around, and it's going to feel really awkward. I mean, even just putting your hands together and put your thumb one direction,
right.
then put it the other
Just this
direction,
way.
right?
But 30 days of those little appetizer principles,
Wow, big
oh my
changes.
goodness, it's a big change, right? I mean, I know I'm singing to the choir because you know this, but I'm just excited with the conversation because it's,
And I don't think
oh,
people can hear that often enough. And
no,
again, it's about really beginning to live your life being you and not who you think.
you're supposed to be.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
we've been programmed. That's like in the industrial age, all the women stayed home and watched the kids because now the men were out working. And then they created the TV, but there was programming in the TV because how do you take care and oops, I disappeared. All these people and all these kids that are watching, how do you mind all of them? How do you get them to do the same thing? And
Right.
so we have to unprogram ourselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, Madeline, we could just keep this conversation going forever.
I know, I love it.
But we're going to get you back on the show and we'll start talking about some other things,
Thank you.
It'd be
Love it.
great, yes. But I want to say for now, thank you so much for coming and joining us
My
today.
honor.
And if you have one thing you'd like to share with the audience, what would that be?
The one thing I'd like to share with the audience is when anyone asks me this question, learn to trust yourself.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Trust yourself.
Yeah. When you get that
Whatever
trust,
comes up, that's it.
when you can trust yourself, your belief in yourself, your confidence, everything else goes up. It starts with the trust.
Exactly. I'm so honored. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you welcome. So now it's time to do what? It's time to say go out there and be that best you that you can be because Madeline and I, we are going to be the best we that we can be. And we'll see you all on the next show.